Thanks. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with such esteemed colleagues. So, my name is Samir Hinduja, and I'm from Florida Atlantic University, and we focus a lot on cyberbullying over there with the Cyberbullying Research Center. I wanted to talk about preventing cyberbullying after giving a little bit of a background about what we're specifically talking about. If you need these slides or if you need any sort of follow-up in terms of fact sheets or data or other resources, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can drop me a note later. What is cyberbullying? Well, Simone gave a great definition of traditional bullying, and if you just take that traditional definition and amend it, well, that's what we're talking about. Willful and repeated harm inflicted through the use of computers, cell phones, or other electronic devices. So again, take your traditional conceptions of bullying in the hallway, in the classroom, on the playground, and just say it's okay, involving devices. What we found when we were working with Harvard a few years ago was that bullying and harassment, most often by peers, is the greatest threat that minors are facing, both offline and online. And I say this because years ago, we focused a lot on sexual predators, these creepy pedophiles waiting to prey on our youth in chat rooms and social networking sites. Those are very rare occurrences. Instead, this is a lot more prevalent. We've been studying this since 2004, and just to summarize, we find that it's about 1 out of 4 youth have been victimized online. Again, 25% or so have been cyberbullied. Interestingly, this is in line with what we found as we surveyed the literature. Many other scholars have focused in on this problem, and you can see that the mean is about 21%. So again, that's victimization. In this, 1 out of 5 teens across the board have been cyberbullied. Related to offending, we have found in our 10 studies, it's about 17%. So again, 17% have bullied somebody else online. This also parallels what's been found across many other studies as well. The mean here, across 42 different studies since 2002, is 15%. My point here is that sometimes we hear these messages from the media and society that cyberbullying is spiraling out of control and this moral epidemic. That's not the case. Now, of course, I wouldn't want my child to be victimized in this manner, and 1 out of 4 is a meaningful proportion which definitely warrants our attention and our response. But we need to make sure that there isn't any fear-mongering going on, because when you sort of fan the flames of a moral panic, everyone gets very alarmist, everyone's all squinty-eyed and frowning, and that's not the proper way to deal with any problem. Simone did a great job of summarizing the effects of this problem behavior, and definitely it leads to lower academic achievement, it leads to emotional and psychological difficulties, it leads to psychosomatic illnesses such as anxiety, eating disorders, depression. It leads to minor and moderate forms of school delinquency and school violence. Oftentimes, when a child or a teenager is bullied, they deal with negative emotions such as anger or frustration or sadness or fear or embarrassment. And adults, all of us, we've typically developed positive coping skills to deal with those problems. For example, if I'm angry, I might go to the gym and work out, or I might go for a run, or I might call up my friend if I'm really sad and just vent and feel better about myself. Or I might go to the freezer and pull out a pint of Ben & Jerry's and just pound it, and that'll help me deal with the negative emotions. Kids, on the other hand, haven't fully refined their resiliency mechanisms. And so for that reason, they tend to act out, either in the form of interpersonal harm or self-harm. And it affects offenders in many of the same ways. Bystanders, if this is occurring at your school, you're often looking over your shoulder and wondering, okay, am I going to be the next person targeted? Which of course undermines their ability to feel free and safe and comfortable to focus in on learning. Families, if you've dealt with this in your family, it's very stressful. You just want your child to open up to you, but they just stonewall you, and you need to be able to resolve the problem, but it's so much heartache and so much stress. And schools as well, of course, leads to school climate, which I know some of our other speakers are going to be talking about in just a little while. I'd like to briefly talk about it because it does tie specifically into our research. When you think about climate, I think about how, okay, individuals have a personality. For example, I'm introverted and cerebral and pretty sensitive. Well, organizations like a school, they have a climate. So it's tied into feelings of connectedness, like Bill mentioned, and belongingness, and peer respect, and school safety, and school spirit even. And what we found specifically in our research, just to summarize this, was that students who perceived a poorer school climate Well, in those schools, there is definitely more cyberbullying and more sexting. So if you take nothing home from this, we must remember that if we can improve the school climate, we'll help address this issue, and plus it'll lead to a lot more other benefits, which again will be discussed a little bit later. There's a number of initiatives that are bearing fruit across the nation, and so I just want to share with you a couple of them. Social norming seems to be promising. Social norming is where we tend to change prevailing mentalities as to what kids think are acceptable behavior. For example, let's say that I had all the high school students in the auditorium before me, and I said, hey, high school students, you tell me the percentage of teens who you think engage in underage drinking before they graduate high school. And all these hands go up, and they're saying 80%, 85%. And I'm thinking, okay. And I say, next question. How many high schoolers, what's the percentage, who have sex before they graduate high school? And all these hands go up, and again, it's like 85%, 95%. And then I have to tell them, you know what? According to the official statistics for both of those questions, it's between 30 and 40%. My point here is that if everyone believes that everyone is doing it, they're a lot more disarmed to go ahead and do it themselves because it's perceived as normative. It's perceived as just part of our adolescent culture. So what we have to do related to bullying is changing those prevailing mentalities. You collect data and you point out that, you know what, 4 out of 5 students here say that we shouldn't be teasing other people. It's pretty lame. It's not something that we want to encourage at all, and you shouldn't be doing it. You should be on board with the rest of us. Guess what? It's not cool to spread rumors, to insult others, to call names. And plus, we don't have a culture of silence. In fact, 4 out of 5 of us actually would step up. We're not going to think of ourselves as a tattletale. We're just going to believe that the adults around us are in positions to take the problem and treat it rationally and calmly and responsibly and help us. I'm also a big fan of response to intervention, and I know that we're going to be talking a little bit more about PBIS this, after the break, but this is basically where you conceive of your student body in a triangle format. The bottom triangle is about 80% of your youth, and you're thinking, okay, how are we reaching everyone for the most part through some sort of educational curriculum or programming? The middle part of the triangle is about 15% of your youth who you might characterize as at risk. Okay, what are we doing on a very specific level to help them, to reach them, to meet their particular needs? And then the top part of the triangle is just about 1 to 5% of your population of students who again need very, very specialized, intensive programming and assistance. So it's a good way to conceptualize, okay, what are we doing in our school? What are we doing in our organization to reach these different levels? And then my last point has to do with youth and the fact that I believe they're the ones who can truly make a difference. We want them to be the agents of change. And hopefully you've heard this movement of a lot of individuals, a lot of teens, figuring out how to make kindness go viral. For example, Kevin Kerwick, who a few years ago, now he's in college, he was a senior at Osseo High School, decided to create this anonymous compliments page, sending out, again, complimentary words, encouraging statements to various other kids at his school. This gained a lot of traction, and it led to an environment where everyone was willing to do something that was secret, but also very special and edifying towards other people. And these kindness movements across social media have definitely spread in a number of jurisdictions and areas, and also countries. At my university, FAU, Florida Atlantic University, we have the Honors College, and so someone created an HC compliments page, and you can see that I've been featured. Samir Hinduja is the most authentic person I know. He generally cares about all of us, and when I talk to him, feels like he gives me 100% of his attention. That made me feel wonderful. Made me feel like I should continue to do amazing things. And again, I'm an adult, I hopefully would, but you can imagine this does definitely help youth as well. My last point. I met Sana Giovanni, who goes to Kleins Collins High School in Texas last year, and her specific story was that she was diagnosed at an early age with alopecia, of course, permanent hair loss, and she struggled with it. She dealt with self-harming thoughts. She didn't want to go back to school. She just wanted to really crawl under a rock. But eventually, as she was able to work through this, she decided to take her problem and turn it into something good. And that specific thing is called Natural Day on February 13th, so this week, the day before Valentine's Day, because she says specifically, you need to be able to love yourself before you can love others. She wants everyone to take off their mask. In her case, it was a wig, and come to school and participate in society without any sort of affectations. And hopefully that encourages all of us to accept each other. So these sorts of movements, again, are really making a difference in concert with all of the very cool and promising things that educators are doing. I've written a book called School Climate 2.0, which fleshes many of these things out. Words Wound, our first book for teens, again, really getting to how teens can make kindness go viral. And then our last book for educators, which came out late last year, also sort of fleshes out these issues. Thank you so much for your time.